Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a deep dive into Tyson Foods and their latest annual report. You know, that big document they release every year, fiscal year 2024 in this case. I know, annual reports aren't exactly beach reading,
Yeah, not exactly a thriller.
but there's a lot of fascinating stuff in there if you know where to look.
Right, like we do.
We're talking insights into a global food giant, how they're making money, the challenges they're facing, and what they see coming down the road. It's a window into how the whole food system works. So, don't worry, we'll make sure it's interesting. We promise.
Yeah, these reports are usually just boiled down to like a couple headlines. We're going to go way deeper than that.
Like behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, it's like, you see a beautiful cake, but we're going to show you all the ingredients, the baking process, maybe even a few secret tips from the chef.
Okay, so now I'm hungry for knowledge and maybe a slice of cake. But first, let's do a quick Tyson Foods 101. Just a little background, They've been around since way back in 1935. Started as a family business, and get this, still is.
Wow.
And their reach is enormous. Beef, pork, chicken, even those prepared meals, for a quick dinner. Their products are in 140 countries.
130 countries.
And they employ like a massive workforce, about 138,000 people all around the world. That's a lot of chicken nuggets.
It's a truly global operation, that's for sure. And that means they have to deal with challenges from every corner of the planet. Currency fluctuations, trade wars, you name it.
That's a lot on their plate, but it also means they have like a really unique perspective on the global food market. Okay, so let's get down to business. How did they do financially in 2024? Well, their sales inched up to $53.3 billion.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. But then you look at their operating income and things get really interesting.
It's a wild ride. Hold on to your hats because in 2024, they reported an operating income of $4,409 million.
Whoa.
That's a huge jump from the previous year, where they actually had an operating loss of $395 million.
Wait, they were in the red? What happened?
Well, lots of things can cause these kinds of swings. You got to remember, it's a huge, complex business. One year, chicken feed might be cheap, leading to higher profits. But then, boom, the next year, beef prices could tank, and bam, it hits their bottom line.
So it's a lot like trying to balance a budget, but on a massive scale.
Exactly, with a million moving parts.
Okay, so let's break it down by segment. Let's start with beef. They took a hit there, right?
Yeah, beef actually saw an operating loss. And it's kind of a perfect storm of things. There's this thing called compressed margins, basically meaning that the cost of cattle went up, but Tyson couldn't raise their prices to match because of competition, so their profit got squeezed.
Ouch, I can feel that.
Yeah, like trying to fit into your jeans after a big holiday meal, not comfortable.
So legal issues played a role in the beef segment struggles as well, didn't they? What were those about?
Yeah, those are those legal contingencies you see in the report. Basically, lawsuits, settlements, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it can make a real dent in their profits. Running a food empire is not always easy. There are always these unexpected things that pop up.
Gotcha. Okay, what about pork? How did they fare there?
Yeah, so pork also saw a small operating loss. And part of that was due to some plant closures. Remember, we talked about that earlier. And yep, more legal stuff. It's never ending. So then there's chicken, the comeback kid.
Okay, give me the good news.
All right, so chicken actually bounced back with a really strong operating income. And those lower feed costs we were talking about, those definitely played a role. It makes a huge difference when you're dealing with, like, millions of chickens.
Yeah, every penny counts, I guess, when you're feeding that many birds. Okay, and how about prepared foods, those pre-made meals and snacks, Everyone seems to love those these days.
Yeah, they're a lifesaver. And they did well, delivered consistent profitability. It's a good example of how Tyson's diverse portfolio really helps them. Even when one segment struggles, others can pick up the slack. Like having a diversified investment portfolio, spread the risk.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Well,
So bottom line, even with some hiccups along the way, Tyson managed to pull off overall profitability in 2024.
exactly. It's all about being adaptable and rolling with the punches. Now let's get into one of the juiciest but often confusing parts of these reports, the cost of sales.
Oh yeah, the cost of sales. I always find this part a little bit tricky to wrap my head around. What exactly caused those fluctuations?
Yeah, so there are a couple of main things at play. First, those lower input costs, especially for the chicken feed and transportation, that made a big difference.
So lower input costs are always a good thing, right? More profit for Tyson?
Well, not necessarily. Sometimes lower input costs could actually be like a warning sign. Yeah, it could mean that demand for the final product, the chicken itself, is weakening. And that can lead to lower prices down the line. It's all about context.
So it's not quite as simple as just celebrating those lower costs. There's a bigger picture to keep in mind. Okay, so what else was going on with their cost of sales?
Well, the plant closures and disposals definitely had an impact too.
Right.
Those moves obviously affect cost directly, but then they also impact sales volume. It's a balancing act.
Like downsizing your house. You save money on utilities, but you have less space.
Precisely. And then there's the whole thing about shifts in their product mix.
Product.
Yeah, basically, Tyson is constantly adjusting, which types of products they're selling and how much of each. And this can really affect the average cost per pound. Like if they're selling more premium chicken breasts, the average cost per pound will be higher than if they're selling, I don't know, more budget-friendly chicken nuggets.
Ah, makes sense. So it's like a fashion designer switching from basic t-shirts to like high-end gowns.
Yeah. Exactly. And all these changes together, they show us that Tyson is really actively trying to adapt to the market, make their operations as efficient as possible. They're constantly tweaking the recipe for success.
It's fascinating to see the complexity of it all. I'm starting to understand that running a food company like this is about way more than just like raising chickens and selling meat.
The whole ecosystem.
It's managing all these constantly changing variables, making strategic decisions that have a ripple effect throughout the whole system. Speaking of global reach, let's talk about their international operations. They brought in a cool $7.8 billion in sales in 2024. That's a lot of chicken nuggets crossing borders.
Wow. And that just goes to show the challenges and the opportunities of operating on that global scale. I mean, just imagine trying to navigate currency fluctuations, import and export restrictions, political instability. It's mind-boggling.
It's like trying to navigate a maze while blindfolded.
Yeah. But they do it. And it's a testament to their expertise, how they're able to adapt to all these different cultural and economic environments. Plus, don't forget, they have all these substantial foreign assets, particularly in Asia and South America. It just goes to show how vast their global footprint really is.
So those foreign assets are like a major investment, but they also come with their own set of risks, right? What are some of the things they're worried about?
Well, what if there's political unrest in a country where they have a major processing plant?
Oh, yeah.
Or what if a new trade agreement totally disrupts their supply chain?
Yeah, those are some major what if.
Exactly. These are the kind of geopolitical risks they're constantly assessing and trying to mitigate.
It just goes to show that their success is intertwined with, like, the global landscape, like a delicate ecosystem, where everything is connected.
Precisely. That's why it's so important to look beyond just their financials. It's about their ability to navigate the complexities of this global marketplace.
This is like peeling back the layers of an onion. The more you learn, the more you realize how much more there is to discover.
Exactly. And speaking of peeling back layers, let's move on to something that's increasingly important for, both consumers and investors. Sustainability.
Okay, let's talk about it. What are they doing to address those growing concerns about, the environmental and social impact of food production?
So they're highlighting their focus on sustainability in the report, monitoring those greenhouse gas emissions, implementing all sorts of climate-related initiatives. They're really trying to reduce their footprint.
That's good to hear. What kind of things are they actually doing? Are they investing in renewable energy, planting trees?
They're doing all kinds of things. Energy efficiency upgrades, reducing waste, and even working with farmers to make those agricultural practices more sustainable. It's a big effort.
It's like a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, it can't be easy, right? How are they balancing those sustainability goals with, the need to run a profitable business?
It's a tightrope walk, that's for sure. Sometimes sustainable practices cost more upfront, and it's hard to measure the return on that investment.
Yeah.
So it's really about finding that sweet spot between profit and responsibility.
It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, but in a responsible way.
Exactly. And it's not just about being altruistic, it's also about responding to what consumers want.
Right.
People are increasingly concerned about where their food comes from and how it's produced.
Right.
They want to know that it's ethical and sustainable.
People are voting with their wallets these days.
Exactly. And companies like Tyson are paying attention. Sustainability isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It's a must-have.
It's about protecting their brand, attracting investors, and ultimately ensuring their long-term success in a world that's becoming more and more conscious of these issues.
It's not just about business. It's about being a responsible global citizen.
Right, it's about taking care of the planet and each other. So Tyson is tackling sustainability. But what about cybersecurity? I mean, with all their data and systems, they must be a huge target for hackers, right?
Oh, absolutely. Cybersecurity is a top concern for any company these days, but especially for one with global operations like Tyson. And they know it. They're taking it very seriously.
So how are they approaching cybersecurity?
Well, they've got a dedicated team led by their chief information security officer, and they're using a risk-based approach. They're constantly assessing their vulnerabilities and prioritizing their efforts based on the potential impact of an attack.
So it's not just about having strong passwords, they've got like a whole defense strategy in place.
Exactly. They're investing in the latest technology, training their employees, and working with experts to stay ahead of the curve.
So they're building a digital fortress to protect their business. Okay, but what about their most important asset? Their people. We've talked about the challenges of managing such a huge workforce, but how are they attracting and retaining talent in such a competitive market?
Yeah, good point. They're realizing that their employees are key to their success, and they're taking steps to create a positive work environment. Offering competitive wages and benefits, providing opportunities for professional development, and promoting diversity and inclusion.
It's about creating a culture where people feel valued.
Exactly. And they're backing it up with real action. They've got programs to help employees with things like healthcare, education, and achieving that work-life balance.
Because it's not just about attracting talent, but also about keeping those employees happy and engaged.
Right. It's about building a strong and loyal workforce. And that is a key ingredient in their recipe for long-term success. Now, ready to dive into the numbers?
Let's do it. Let's see what the financials tell us about Tyson Foods' overall health and where they might be headed.
All right, let's crunch those numbers. Welcome back. It's interesting, as we really dig into this report, to see how Tyson Foods thinks about its own vulnerabilities. The risk factors section is really revealing.
Yeah, it's like peeking behind the curtain, right? I mean, we all interact with Tyson Foods every day, right?
Right.
Whether it's that pack of bacon in the fridge or those chicken nuggets in the freezer, but we rarely stop to think about all the challenges and risks they face just to get those products to our table.
Exactly. So let's talk about some of these potential curveballs that Tyson's identified, like a what-if planning session,
Yeah.
but for a multi-billion-dollar food company.
Okay, give me a what if. What's keeping those Tyson execs up at night?
Well, right at the top of the list is something we've all been thinking about a lot lately: pandemics.
Oh, yeah.
After all the disruptions of COVID-19, they know that future pandemics could really mess things up.
Oh.
Supply chain disruptions, consumer demand going haywire, and even just keeping their plants running smoothly could be a big challenge.
Yeah. It's scary to think about, honestly, like how interconnected the world is and how events on one side of the planet can directly affect what we eat for breakfast.
Exactly. And it's made companies like Tyson think about how to be more resilient, like diversifying your investments. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So they're looking at diversifying their suppliers, having backup plans, being ready to adapt to whatever comes their way.
Like having a plan B and
Yeah.
maybe even a plan C. Okay, so what's another risk they're worried about?
Well, remember those financial excellence programs we were talking about? The ones designed to, streamline their operations and make them more profitable?
Yeah.
Well, there's this tension there, between those short-term efficiency gains and long-term sustainability.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like squeezing every last drop of efficiency out of the system, even if it might not be good for the long haul.
Yeah, exactly. And Tyson acknowledges that those programs, might not always deliver the expected savings, raising questions about their effectiveness in the long run.
So they're aware of those potential downsides. It's about finding a good balance between, maximizing profits today and ensuring the business is healthy for years to come.
Exactly. It's a tough balancing act.
What else are they keeping an eye on?
This one's a bit more specific to Tyson. It's the influence of the Tyson Limited Partnership. We talked about how this partnership, mainly family members, holds a lot of voting power within the company.
Right. So it's like this powerful family council that can have a big say in decisions.
Yeah, and it's something investors should be aware of because it could impact, how decisions are made and whether they prioritize family interests or the interests of all shareholders. It can affect the whole governance structure of the company.
So transparency is important there. Okay, let's talk about some of the bigger, more general risks that could impact Tyson.
Sure. Well, one that's always a concern for food companies is the volatility of commodity prices. Their raw materials, things like corn, soybeans, livestock, the prices can go up and down like crazy, which directly impacts their costs.
It's like trying to budget for groceries when the price of everything is constantly changing. So how do they manage that uncertainty?
They use a bunch of different strategies like hedging, forward contracts, diversifying their suppliers. It's all about trying to mitigate those risks.
So they're not just sitting back and, hoping for the best. They're actively managing those
Right,
risks.
they're not passive about it. And then, of course, there's always competition.
Ah, yes.
The food industry is incredibly competitive both here in the U.S. and globally.
Fiercely competitive.
Other companies are always trying to grab market share with aggressive pricing, new products, innovative marketing. It's a constant battle.
Yeah, they got to stay on their toes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Tyson has to respond to that. They have to adjust their pricing, invest in research and development, maybe even expand into new markets. They're always looking for ways to grow and stay ahead of the game.
Okay, let's do a few more rapid fire risk factors.
Okay, let's do it. So first up, product liability claims.
Oh, yeah. Big one.
That's a big one for food companies. If there's an issue with a product, a recall or God forbid, a foodborne illness outbreak,
Right.
it can be a real nightmare. Lawsuits, damage to their reputation. It's a reminder that food safety is absolutely crucial.
They got to be so careful. Okay, what else? What else is on the radar?
Well, government regulations.
Mm.
There are always new rules and regulations popping up, and it can be really complex and costly for a company like Tyson to stay in compliance.
It's like a maze that keeps changing its shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need a whole team of experts just to keep up with it all.
All right, what's next?
Climate change. This is the big one for everybody, and the food industry is no exception. They're worried about the long-term effects on their operations. Things like water scarcity, extreme weather events that disrupt supply chains, you name it.
We're all feeling that.
Right.
So what are they doing about it?
Well, they're trying to be proactive. Investing in renewable energy, using water more efficiently, working with farmers on more sustainable practices. It's all about mitigating their impact and adapting to a changing climate.
So they're trying to be part of the solution.
Exactly. And then there's protecting their intellectual property. All those secret recipes and processes they've developed over the years. They have to protect that stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't want somebody stealing the secret formula for those chicken nuggets.
Exactly. And of course, there are always the financial risks too. Potential tax liabilities, the challenges of attracting and retaining good workers in a tight labor market. It's like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole.
So many challenges.
Right. But they're managing it. It's really impressive to see how Tyson is navigating all of these risks while also continuing to grow and innovate.
They're definitely a company to watch.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of innovation, let's talk about something Tyson is really focusing on, sustainability.
All right. I'm eager to hear about their green initiatives. What are they doing to reduce their environmental impact and address those concerns about how food production affects the planet?
Well, they're realizing that sustainability isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It's a must-have.
Right.
Consumers are demanding it, investors are looking for it, and the planet needs it.
So it's a win-win-win. What kinds of things are they doing specifically?
They're taking a multi-pronged approach. They're monitoring and reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, investing in renewable energy, making their operations more energy efficient. They're even working with their suppliers to reduce emissions throughout the entire supply chain.
So it's like going green from farm to fork.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Water usage is a big deal too, especially in areas where water is scarce. They're working to conserve water in their plants, working with communities to protect water resources, all that.
So it's not just about their own impact, it's about working together to protect those shared resources.
Right. It's a collaborative effort. And what about their social responsibility efforts? Well, they're making progress there too. Worker safety, animal welfare, diversity and inclusion in their workforce.
So sustainability is about people too, not just the environment.
Exactly. Treating their workers fairly, supporting the communities where they operate, being ethical throughout their supply chain, it all matters.
It sounds like they're really trying to walk the talk on sustainability. It's good to see a company like that putting in the effort.
It is. And it's not just about doing the right thing. It's smart business. It helps them attract and retain talent, build stronger relationships with customers, and ensure they're going to be around for the long haul.
Okay, so they're tackling sustainability, but what about cybersecurity? With all the digital stuff these days, I mean, they must be a huge target for hackers, right? How are they keeping everything safe and secure?
Yeah, you're right. Cybersecurity is a top priority, especially for a company with a global reach like Tyson. And They're not messing around.
So what's their game plan?
Well, they have a dedicated team led by their Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO. They're using a risk-based approach, always evaluating potential vulnerabilities and prioritizing their efforts based on the impact of an attack. They're really on top of it.
It's like a digital fortress, with firewalls and all sorts of defenses.
Exactly. They're investing in the latest technology, training their employees, all that good stuff. They know cybersecurity is an ongoing battle.
Okay, so they're protecting all these digital assets. But what about their most important asset? Their people. We talked about managing such a large workforce, but how are they keeping their employees happy and engaged, especially in a competitive job market?
They're realizing that their employees are essential to their success. So they're creating a more positive work environment, offering competitive wages and benefits, making sure they have opportunities to grow and learn, and promoting diversity and inclusion.
So it's not just about attracting talent, it's about keeping those good people around.
Precisely. Happy employees, productive employees, that's the goal. And are you ready to crunch some numbers?
Bring on the financial deep dive. I'm curious to see how everything we've talked about is showing up in their bottom line.
All right, let's take a look at their financials and see what they tell us about Tyson's overall health and future prospects.
And we're back for the final leg of our deep dive into Tyson Foods. We've covered a lot of ground, from their financials to their sustainability efforts, their risks, and their strategies for, navigating this ever-changing food landscape.
It's amazing how much goes into that package of chicken in your freezer.
Yeah, I'm never going to look at a chicken nugget the same way again.
Okay.
So before we wrap up, let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture. Tyson's role in the global food system and how their decisions affect us all.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, their choices from sourcing and production to packaging and distribution, it all has ripple effects throughout the entire food chain.
So it's not just about what ends up on our plates, right? They're decisions about things like animal welfare, sustainable farming, even worker conditions. All of that matters.
Absolutely. And it affects the environment too, the livelihoods of farmers and workers and, the health of our planet. It's all connected.
It really makes you think about the power of our food choices. So what can we do as individuals, to make a difference?
Well, we can be more informed consumers.
Right.
Read labels, do your research, and support brands that align with your values.
Yeah, it's like voting with your wallet, choosing to spend your money on the kind of world you want to see.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of your voice. Speak up, share your concerns with companies, and advocate for better policies. We can create a more sustainable and equitable food system, but it takes all of us working together.
So to sum it all up, what are some of the key takeaways from our deep dive into Tyson Foods?
I think one thing is clear. Tyson is definitely a company that's, always adapting and evolving to meet new challenges.
Yeah, they're facing a lot of headwinds. Commodity prices going up and down, consumers changing their preferences, and of course the pressure to operate sustainably. But they're also showing that they're willing to change and try new things.
Exactly. Investing in new technology, exploring alternative proteins, really stepping up their commitment to sustainability. They're trying to future-proof their business.
They're realizing that the old ways of doing things just aren't going to cut it anymore.
Right. And it's not easy. They're doing all this while managing a huge, complex global operation and juggling all those risks we talked about.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is just how complex the food industry really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a whole world behind that simple chicken nugget.
So next time you're at the grocery store, take a minute, think about where your food came from, the farmers who grew it, the workers who processed it, the companies that brought it to you.
And remember, your choices matter. Every purchase you make is a vote for the kind of food system you want to support.
So be an informed consumer, use your voice, and choose wisely.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Tyson Foods. We hope you found it informative and, maybe even a little inspiring.
Until next time, happy eating, everyone.